Dude, you ever think about how easy it is for someone to just watch you while you sleep? I never really did, until that weekend at the Airbnb. So I was 23 at the time. I'd just finished a big work project, totally burned out, and I decided to treat myself to a chill weekend away. Nothing fancy, just a cheap Airbnb a couple hours out of town. You know, get away from the city noise, reset my brain a little. When I pulled up to the house, it actually looked pretty nice. A cozy 2-story place with big trees all around and a cute porch swing. The host, Rick, was standing on the porch when I arrived. He was this middle-aged guy with messy hair and a forced, too-wide smile. At first I thought he was just trying to be friendly. He shook my hand way too long. You know, that awkward handshake where they don't want to let go. He kept asking me stuff like where I was from, what I do for work, if I was traveling alone. Looking back, dude was fishing for info. Anyway, I tried to shrug it off. He showed me around the house, basic stuff. Kitchen, tiny living room with this old TV, one bathroom downstairs and my bedroom upstairs. While he was showing me the room, I noticed a weird smell, kind of like mildew mixed with something metallic. But I thought, whatever. Old houses always smell weird. After he left, I unpacked, grabbed some takeout, and threw on a horror movie. I remember thinking it was funny to watch a scary movie alone in a random house. So dumb, right? Around midnight, I was brushing my teeth and heard footsteps downstairs. Heavy, slow footsteps. My first thought, oh, he probably forgot something. But then I remembered he said he lives across town. I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth. My heart was beating so loud I swear I could hear it echo off the walls. I tiptoed to the top of the stairs, leaned forward just enough to peek. The lights were off downstairs, but I saw a shadow move across the hallway. It was quick, like someone ducking out of sight. I ran back into my room and locked the door. I told myself it must be my imagination, maybe the house settling, some stupid old floorboard creak. But then I heard it again, a soft creak right outside my door. I grabbed my phone and turned the flashlight on, holding it like some kind of weapon. Not helpful at all, but it made me feel less helpless. That whole night, I sat there listening to every sound, every tiny shift in the floor, every random pop from the wood. I texted my best friend about it, but he just joked that I was being paranoid. Around 3 a.m., I finally dozed off, sitting upright, still fully dressed. I thought, maybe tomorrow I'll just check out early and leave. But in the back of my mind, I knew something was seriously off. And what I didn't know yet is that the real nightmare hadn't even started. When I woke up, it was already bright out. Sunlight was flooding through the window, and for a second, I almost convinced myself the whole night had just been a messed up dream. I went downstairs trying to shake off that creepy vibe. I made some coffee, sat at the kitchen table scrolling through my phone, checking out memes, texting my friend again. He kept clowning me, saying, "Bro, maybe the ghost just wanted to Netflix and chill with you." Real helpful. But then, I saw something that made me choke on my coffee. Right there on the kitchen counter was a note. A folded piece of yellow paper with my name on it. My actual name. I hadn't told Rick my full name, just my first name when we messaged. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside, it said, "You're even more perfect than I imagined. You sleep so peacefully." My whole body turned ice cold. I looked around, checking every window, every door. The back door was unlocked. I know for a fact I locked it the night before. That's when I noticed muddy footprints going from the door to the stairs. panic mode. I grabbed my phone and thought about calling the cops, but then I thought, what if he was still in the house? What if I pissed him off and he came at me before they arrived? I ran upstairs, grabbed my stuff, and started packing like a madman. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to get the hell out without running into whoever was there. While I was shoving stuff into my bag, I accidentally knocked over a nightstand. It tipped and slammed against the wall. Suddenly, from the hallway, I heard a low laugh, a slow, sick, dragging kind of laugh that felt like it vibrated through my bones. I grabbed my bag and my phone, cracked the door open, and peeked. There was nobody there. I bolted down the stairs, almost tripping over my own feet, and sprinted out the front door. When I got to my car, I looked back at the house. That's when I saw him, Rick. He was standing in the upstairs window, just watching me. Not moving, just staring with that same weird smile. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key into the ignition. As soon as the car roared to life, I sped out of the driveway, gravel spraying everywhere. As I was driving away, I kept looking in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him running after me or something, but he didn't. He just stayed there in the window. I drove for about 20 minutes before I finally pulled over at a gas station. I sat there trying to catch my breath, thinking about that note, that laugh, that look on his face. I pulled up the Airbnb app on my phone and checked the listing again. The reviews all looked normal. No one mentioned anything even close to what I just experienced. That made me feel even more sick. How many people had stayed there and never realized they were being watched? While I was sitting there, I noticed something in my bag. Another piece of yellow paper. I felt like I was gonna puke. I unfolded it, and it simply said, "You can't run forever." I almost threw my phone out the window right then and there. I knew I had to go to the cops, but something in me was terrified he'd somehow follow me, that he already knew where I lived. My phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Don't worry, I'll see you again soon. I don't even remember driving home." It felt like my brain was on autopilot, my hands shaking the whole time. Every time I checked my mirrors, I half expected to see his face pop up behind me. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I just sat there. I felt like if I got out, he'd already be waiting for me. But eventually I forced myself to move. I ran inside, locked every single door and window, and went straight to my room. I tried calling the police, but my voice was all shaky. I couldn't even explain it right. All I could say was, "There's this guy. He left me notes. He was in the house. They told me they'd send someone to check." But I knew it was useless. Rick was smart, way too smart. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Every tiny sound made me jump. The house felt like it was shrinking in on me. I kept replaying that note in my head. "You can't run forever." Around 3 a.m. I heard tapping on my bedroom window. Soft, slow, almost playful. My heart dropped into my stomach. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, slowly moving toward the window. When I finally looked out, nothing. Just darkness. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to convince myself I imagined it. But then, another tap. I snapped my head to the side window. This time, I saw it. A shadow moving across my yard. I ducked down, crawling away from the window, heart pounding so loud I thought it would give me away. I texted my friend, "Bro, he's here. I swear to God." No response. I tried calling 911 again, whispering so quietly I could barely hear myself. They said they were sending someone, but I knew he'd be gone before they even showed up. Suddenly I heard footsteps inside the house, slow, heavy steps on the stairs. I covered my mouth, trying not to scream. The door handle to my room started moving, turning just a tiny bit. I pressed my body against the closet door, praying he wouldn't find me. Then I heard him whisper my name, my real name, over and over again, in this soft, sing-song voice that made my skin crawl. I was about to pass out when I heard sirens in the distance. The footsteps stopped. Total silence. Then, I heard the front door slam. I stayed frozen until the cops burst in. They searched the house, but of course he was gone. They didn't find any notes this time. They didn't believe me when I told them about the messages. A few days later, I got an email from Airbnb saying the listing had been removed because of safety concerns. But Rick, he vanished. No trace, no social media, no records, nothing. Like he never even existed. I moved in with my cousin for a while, but even now, months later, I still check every window. I still wake up at 3 a.m., convinced I hear tapping. Sometimes, late at night, I get these random emails from an address I don't recognize. All they say is, "See you soon." I don't know when, I don't know how, but deep down, I know he's coming back for me. And next time, I might not be so lucky. All right, so this happened last fall. Me and my buddy Jake booked a weekend trip to Vermont. We just wanted to get away from everything. City noise, school stress, work. All that. Jake found this super cheap cabin on Airbnb, kinda in the middle of nowhere. It looked cozy in the pics. Wood interior, little fireplace, a forest out back. Too good to be true? Yeah, should have known. We drove up on a Friday afternoon. Took like 4 hours. And the last part of the drive was all narrow, twisting roads through the woods. No streetlights, barely any signal. Kinda spooky, but honestly, it added to the whole escape from society vibe. We got there around 6 p.m. The sun was going down, and the air was freezing. The cabin looked older than in the pictures, not falling apart or anything, but definitely more worn down. Like nobody had stayed there in a while. Porch light was flickering, too. There was a lockbox on the door, like the host said. We got in, dropped our bags, and started looking around. The place was creepy, but charming. Wooden floorboards that creaked like hell, taxidermy deer on the walls, a bunch of old photos of the woods hanging everywhere. One photo in the hallway caught my eye. A black and white pic of the same cabin, but it looked abandoned in it. Windows boarded up, front door half open, fog in the background. Weird choice for decoration. Right. We laughed it off, told ourselves it was just some artsy shot. Jake threw some logs in the fireplace and we cracked open a couple beers. No Wi-Fi, barely any service. So we just played cards, listened to music from his speaker, and talked trash like we always do. Around 11 p.m., we were about to call it a night when we heard footsteps on the porch. Not heavy ones, soft, like someone in socks or bare feet. We froze, looked at each other like, "Did you hear that?" The steps stopped right outside the door. No knock, no voice. Just stillness. Jake stood up slowly, looked through the peephole. I stayed behind him, heart pounding. "No one's there," he whispered, "but I swear I heard something." He opened the door a crack. Porch was empty, trees swaying a little in the wind, moonlight making everything look silver. But nobody around. Still, the porch light was completely off now, just dead. We locked up and went to bed. Tried to brush it off. "Maybe an animal," I said. "A deer or something." Jake didn't respond. At like 2 a.m. I woke up to creaking. Thought it was just Jake going to the bathroom, but I realized it was coming from the hallway. Slow, careful footsteps again. I sat up, held my breath. "Jake," I whispered. He replied from the other room. "Yo, was that you?" "No," I said. He got up, opened his door, and looked down the hall. Nothing. But get this, that old photo, the black and white one of the cabin, it was gone, just not there. Frame was empty, glass shattered on the floor. We searched the whole cabin. Couldn't find the photo anywhere. Doors were still locked, windows shut. I couldn't sleep after that. Just laid there, listening. Every time I thought it was quiet, I'd hear something faint, like breathing, close, but not inside the room. Like it was right on the other side of the wall. In the morning we thought about leaving, but we didn't. We were dumb, young. We figured we were just spooking ourselves out. You know, spoiler, we should have left. So yeah, we stayed. I don't know why. Maybe it was ego. Maybe we didn't want to admit we were freaked out. But we told ourselves we came out here to disconnect. So we were going to stick it out. That morning was weird. Not scary weird, just off. The whole forest outside was dead quiet. Like not even birds, just wind in the trees and our boots crunching on the frosty ground. We took a walk to clear our heads, followed a small trail that started behind the cabin. It was marked on the Airbnb guidebook as scenic, but it felt abandoned, like nobody had walked it in years. After like 15 minutes, we saw something, a little wooden shed off the trail. No mention of it in the listing. Roof half collapsed, door hanging open, looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Jake wanted to check it out. I told him nope. Not interested in getting tetanus or, I don't know, cursed. But of course he went in. He found some old junk. Rusted tools, broken chairs, and something wrapped in a burlap sack. Looked like it had been soaked through. He didn't open it, thank God. But he brought it out. I was like, "Why are you touching random murder bags in the woods, dude?" He laughed. "Chill, probably some old farmer crap." We headed back, and that's when we saw it. The cabin door was open. We both stopped, just stared. "I locked it," Jake said. "I definitely locked it." I didn't say anything, just followed him inside. Nothing looked touched, no signs of forced entry, but there was this smell, like damp wood and something metallic. Blood? Maybe. Not strong, just enough to make your stomach tighten. And then I saw it. That old photo? The black and white one of the cabin? It was back on the wall, same frame, no crack, just there. Jake swore up and down he hadn't found it or put it back. I hadn't either. But there it was, perfectly hung. Only now, the photo looked different. The cabin in the picture wasn't empty anymore. There was a figure in the window, kinda hard to see, but it looked like a man or someone standing in the shadows of the living room, staring out. I wanted to leave right then. I said it out loud. "Let's go. I don't care if we lose the money." Jake hesitated, said it could be a prank, a glitch, something to do with the Airbnb host. But I could tell he was scared, too. His voice was shaky. He tried to act chill, but he kept glancing over his shoulder. We decided to stay one more night, pack early, and leave in the morning. Dumbest decision of my life. That night, we barricaded the door, like literally moved the couch in front of it. Slept in the same room, door locked, flashlight, baseball bat, even a kitchen knife next to the bed. And still something woke us up around 3 a.m. It was the sound of something dragging, slow, heavy, like someone pulling a sack across the floorboards. It was coming from the living room. I grabbed the flashlight and pointed it under the door. couldn't see anything, but the sound kept going, like it was circling the room, dragging something behind it. Every now and then it would stop, like it was listening. Jake whispered, "Bro, it's inside." I didn't respond, just nodded. We both held our breath. Then, bang! The sound of glass shattering in the kitchen. We jumped up, ready to bolt. But when we opened the door, everything was still. No dragging, no bang, just cold silence. We tiptoed to the kitchen, flashlight shaking in my hand. The window was wide open, shards all over the floor, and sitting on the table, that burlap sack Jake had found in the shed. We hadn't brought it inside, I swear on my life. We left it in the woods. Jake stepped forward slowly and reached for it. I said, "Don't open it." But he already was. Inside, hair, like a full head of it, black, matted, stinking. Jake dropped the sack and backed away. He looked like he was about to puke. That's when we heard the front door creak open, even though we'd barricaded it. We turned, frozen, and from the shadows of the living room, someone stepped out. He stepped out of the shadows like he'd been standing there the whole time. Tall, skinny, hunched a little, long arms, wearing, I don't even know. Looked like old clothes. Dirty, torn, like he hadn't left the woods in years. His face was mostly hidden in the dark. But I saw eyes, wide, unblinking, just staring at us. I froze. Jake did too. None of us said anything. It was like time just stopped. Then the man, or whatever the hell it was, tilted his head slowly to the side, like he was curious, like we were the weird ones for being there. I whispered, "Don't move." But Jake didn't listen. He turned and ran, straight out the busted kitchen window. Glass sliced his arm, but he didn't care. He just dove out, hit the ground, and disappeared into the woods. The second Jake ran, the guy turned toward me. Didn't rush, didn't scream. He just walked. One slow step after another, like he had all the time in the world. I panicked, threw the flashlight at him and bolted after Jake. I didn't even look back. I ran until my lungs were burning, just trees and fog and that freezing air slapping me in the face. I finally found Jake down the trail, sitting in the dirt, holding his arm, blood everywhere. He looked at me like, "Tell me this isn't real." I didn't answer. I couldn't. We made it to the car somehow. Jake had dropped the keys while running, but by some miracle they were still in his jacket. We locked the doors, turned on the engine, and just drove. Didn't talk, didn't stop, didn't even breathe, I think. We drove for hours until we found a diner on the side of the highway. Called the cops from there. Told them we were attacked. Left out the creepy details. Just said someone broke in. We were scared. We ran. They said they'd send someone to check it out. But later that night, an officer called us back. Said there was no sign of anyone. No footprints. No signs of forced entry. No man in the cabin. They even said the windows weren't broken. But the weirdest part? They said the cabin was locked up tight. Nobody had stayed there in months, and Airbnb had no record of the listing. Jake tried to pull it up on his phone. It was gone, completely wiped. Like it never existed, even the address we drove to. It wasn't showing up anymore. Not on Google Maps, not anywhere. We told ourselves maybe it was some weird mistake. Maybe we got pranked. Maybe we hallucinated it all, but here's the thing. Last week, almost a year later, Jake got a package in the mail. No return address, just brown paper tied with string. He opened it while I was on FaceTime with him. Inside, that photo. The black and white one of the cabin. Only now, there's two figures in the window, and one of them is wearing Jake's jacket.